Spider-Man 3 doesn't work. After the success of the first two movies, this one is extremely disappointing to look back on, and even with all the studio interference throughout the production, it didn't need to be. Harry's motivations and the plotline are flawed from the beginning. Harry has immediately decided that he wants to kill Peter without any build-up whatsoever. Although the first two movies were setting up a motivation for Harry to become a villain, they didn't bring him to that point yet. It feels like there's a missing chapter with crucial material for Harry's character. This movie seems to present Harry as cartoonishly vengeful and hateful towards Peter just because he learned he was Spider-Man, when Harry was a lot more nuanced in the past two movies. What's important to remember is that Harry was met with disbelief when he first learned that Peter was Spider-Man, and he ultimately refused to enact vengeance.
He's my best friend.
And I'm your father. You were always weak. You'll always be weak until you take control. Now you know the truth about Peter. Avenge me. Avenge me! No!
This communicates that Harry doesn't fully believe Peter is capable of what he thinks may have happened, and there's a few reasons for this. Harry may have accused Peter of killing his father in the heat of the moment, but he saw through Peter's actions that killing isn't in his heart. If Peter was a killer at heart, he would have killed Harry after he was set free. But he didn't, even after Harry tried to kill him and knows his secret identity. His focus was on saving the city. Peter didn't even try to have Harry arrested for working with Otto or trying to kill him. If Harry's image of Spider-Man in his head were actually true, this is something that would at least challenge his beliefs, and it seems like the end of Spider-Man 2 was going that direction. But Spider-Man 3 immediately has him ready to kill Peter. He doesn't even ask any questions or try to find out Peter's side of it. He just creates a whole bunch of gear and takes the serum his father used. And what's even worse is that Peter didn't even try to talk to Harry about this. Right after Spider-Man 2, he should have organized a time to tell Harry the truth after he faced such a revelation. But by the time Spider-Man 3 happens, his relationship with MJ has lasted long enough for Peter to attempt a proposal to MJ. And Peter only tries to talk to Harry because he happened to bump into him at the theater. What was he doing beforehand? And even when Harry becomes the new Goblin, he gets taken down in his first fight and loses his memory for a portion of the film. They straight up stop the plotline just to focus on Sandman, just so they can get rid of Sandman and conveniently bring Harry's memories back. This definitely makes for a sloppy plot structure, but it also makes Harry less intimidating. This is supposed to be the successor of the Green Goblin, yet he loses his first fight so badly that he loses his memories. How am I supposed to be scared of this guy? What made the Green Goblin and Doc Ock so intimidating is that Spider-Man constantly gets beaten by them. He doesn't actually defeat them until later. Harry doesn't have a great start, and his character becomes difficult to invest in because of this rushed setup. What's even worse is that Harry's redemption is ultimately rushed. Peter shows up to his house and tells him he needs his help to save MJ. Harry tells Peter to get out, indicating he refuses to help. He refuses to forgive Peter, up until Bernard all of a sudden tells him that the blade that pierced his father came from his glider. Therefore, Norman died by his own hand and Spider-Man is innocent. First of all, no, Venom killed Harry with his own glider. Does that mean Venom is innocent? MCU Spider-Man tried to kill Norman with his own glider. Does that mean Peter is innocent? It could have easily been that situation. Why would Harry rule out that possibility? Especially since Peter literally just threw a bomb at him in the previous scene. I can see why Bernard might believe this, believing that Spider-Man doesn't kill, but why would Harry change based on this information? And if Bernard knew this, why didn't he tell Harry earlier? Why did he willingly not speak about this when Harry has spent years blaming Spider-Man for his father's death?
Your father only obsessed over his work.
Tonight, Bernard.
It makes his redemption unearned, even if it brings a lot of good moments in a vacuum. Next up, we have Sandman. Sandman is an interesting case because he's a character that doesn't want to hurt anyone. He only killed Uncle Ben by accident and spent years regretting this and feeling bad for it.
Did a terrible thing to you. I spent a lot of nights wishing I could take it back.
And this is definitely an interesting case to work with to align with the theme of redemption and forgiveness. But Sandman's morals are inconsistent in this movie, so this takes away from the more sympathetic elements of his character, and he is often out of character because of this. Sandman is impervious once he has his powers. He cannot be hurt or killed through regular means, so he has no reason to throw this cop at a car window when a civilian is inside. He has no reason to throw a sand fist at a crowd of cops and cause destruction on on that same street. He has no reason to then fly through a crowd of people when they could easily suffocate from the sand. He has no reason to cause car crashes on the road when he could easily just stop the truck and steal the money. He has no reason to stay in alliance with Venom after he kills cops. He has no reason to try preventing Peter from saving an innocent woman who had nothing to do with the whole conflict. If Sandman doesn't want to hurt innocent people, then why would he needlessly endanger them throughout the movie?
I didn't choose to be this.
You kinda did, and this is ultimately why Sandman doesn't work in this movie. Eddie Brock is a rushed villain. His motivations make sense at first, and his twisted sense of morality is a good contrast to Peter Parker. He's not necessarily an inconsistent character, but he is a rushed one. He isn't given the proper screen time to flesh out his motivations, or explore the nuance, as we've seen with Norman Osborn and Otto Octavius. After Eddie gets fired, he goes to church and wishes for Peter to die. That's it. That's the most we get in terms of exploring his motivations in that scene. We don't see how he justifies taking another life, or explore why his way of thinking is so messed up. He just is, and it gets even worse when he actually becomes Venom.
I like being bad. It makes me happy.
This is just cartoonishly evil. He doesn't even care if he can justify his actions at that point, because he willingly just accepts they're bad, but he enjoys it anyway. He has a flat ideology. There's no nuance or depth to pull from this character, because they didn't even give him the time to be fleshed out. Why spend this much time setting up Venom if he's going to be this flat of a character by the end of the movie? Even by the end of the movie, I don't even know what his end goal is or what he wanted to use his Venom identity for, because they don't even say his name in the movie or tell us how this changes Eddie's view of himself. He's just evil because it's funny. MJ is generally okay in this movie, though I do want to mention some significant problems nonetheless. I think she has a lot of reasons to be annoyed at Peter in this movie, which we will get to, and Peter isn't being very receptive to her comments. While I expect a rift between these two characters, I think MJ takes it too far when she meets with Harry. I understand she wants company, but that doesn't mean she has to kiss Harry and cheat on Peter. While you can bring up similar behavior in the trilogy, at least in the first movie, we can understand that MJ is younger and less capable of responding maturely to relationship problems. A significant part of that movie is MJ maturing when it comes to how to react to relationship problems, and seeing the consequences her mistakes can bring. And in the second movie, while not a perfect writing decision on its own, this was at least done as a test to see if Peter is Spider-Man. By now, she should know better, especially since she specifically calls out Peter for kissing Gwen, which she tries to be understanding of in a later scene, showing that she isn't even holding this against him as strongly. So, this kiss with Harry comes out of nowhere. While she does regret it right afterwards, she should have known better in the first place. Other than that, I don't really have problems with MJ, but this feels like a significant shift from her character growth in the past. Now, my biggest problem with this movie is Peter Parker, which is frustrating because Peter does have great moments in isolation in this movie, but not all of it is earned and some of his decisions are out of character. To start off small, I don't know why he goes to a public park and creates a web for MJ and himself to lay down on. Anyone who goes to this park could see this, and this would risk Peter's identity needlessly.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Later on, Spider-Man goes to save Gwen from falling out of the building struck by an out-of-control crane. Yet after Spider-Man saves Gwen, he just stands there to talk to Eddie for a brief moment and swings away from the scene. But there is still a crane out of control spinning around with a man inside it. This is left unaccounted for, which is highly irresponsible of Peter to do. To get into a bigger problem, Peter's newfound confidence is taken a step too far when he decides to cheat on MJ by kissing Gwen. He saw Harry getting upset when he merely saw MJ and Peter holding hands in the first movie, so he must have known how MJ would react to Peter actually kissing Gwen, and MJ is someone he has always loved and wanted to commit to since he was in school. The movie tries to suggest he did it because the crowd would love it, but he literally just had a movie that focused on the importance of principles over personal desires.
Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams.
He even tries to justify himself at the dinner table. He doesn't even apologize for it. He's just that stupid. This plays into the ego trip he's going on, and the black suit is only meant to amplify this. And the frustrating part about this is that even if we set aside Peter's actions early on, his character decisions generally make sense for the rest of the movie, and he does have some really good emotional moments. The problems I have with the black suit section of this movie is more so rooted in the presentation, alongside some consistency problems. I don't understand how Peter could have agency in removing the symbiote after he has bonded with it. The movie portrays it as if Peter can just take off the black suit like it's some regular clothing, and is no longer influenced by it, but the symbiote is stated to use a host to survive, and the end of the movie shows you can't just remove the symbiote by taking the suit off. So how is Peter able to have a choice in removing the suit at one point in the movie? That's not consistent with what they're telling us, and an important element of this arc is how scary Peter Parker can be if he loses himself. And to its credit, there are parts of it that present this successfully, such as when he fights Sandman and tries to kill him, but at other points, we have Peter Parker dancing to goofy music. In fact, it happens twice. People have tried defending this by saying this is what Peter Parker thinks is cool, since he was a loser in high school, but that doesn't really address the root of the problem. It may not be out of character for Peter, but it makes his transformation less intimidating. I'm not scared of this guy. We see hints of Peter brutalizing criminals in his photos, but we never actually see those scenes. Imagine how terrifying Spider-Man can be if he fights crime differently from what we've seen in the past, and it would further play into the addiction allegory that they're going for, since they'd actually be showing Peter using the suit more often. The most redeeming elements for Peter Parker's character are mostly towards the end, though I do appreciate some elements established early on. I do think there's a good story to be told about Peter Parker becoming more prideful and less accepting of help. These elements generally worked until they stretched it too far for the sake of drama. I definitely think Peter's addiction to the symbiote is portrayed effectively, except for the parts where he can't be taken seriously. I think his talk with Aunt May about Flint Marko is done really well, as it remains attentive to the implication that Aunt May knows her nephew is Spider-Man, while staying consistent with Peter's current headspace. I think Peter accidentally hitting MJ is a good way to snap him out of his actions, showing how deep his love for MJ is even when they're drifting apart, and is a good way to show how an unhealthy addiction can damage the lives of those who care about you and are trying to help you. I like how he learns to forgive himself through Aunt May's guidance after having to process his worst treatment to the people he loves. It puts him in the shoes of some of his villains, especially those who also hold deep regret for their actions. It's what allows him to forgive Uncle Ben's killer, and for his motivations to evolve beyond his own guilt, and shift towards a desire to be the best of himself. Spider-Man 3 does not come close to Spider-Man 1 and 2, and it's unfortunate because it really could have. It has really great ideas, but the execution falls flat for the most part. This movie is a 3 out of 10 in my eyes. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and want me to talk about more Spider-Man movies since you're all clearly eager for that kind of thing. That's all for now, goodbye.